What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet. Today I'm back with a brand new and exciting modded Skyrim build with a twist. The twist being that this character is no mortal. He fell down from the heavens. This is the Celestial. When he fell to the earth, he ripped a gaping hole in the ground. The needs of the first era worshipped him, and now after a long slumber, he has emerged again. This time to bestow Skyrim with his divine presence. The Celestial is closer to God than man, and with that power, you will hold the fate of the province firmly in your grasp. As a Celestial born in the image of the warrior constellation, he is the epitome of combat prowess, and he has an innate drive to protect the helpless. He is capable of being equally benevolent and wrathful. Those who gain his favor will live prosperous lives, while those who cross him will be crushed into the ground by the might of his battle axe. With his legendary two-handed weapon, the Celestial sends foes of even the highest levels running in fear, and one swing can send Daedra back to Oblivion. Thanks to a few mods, the Celestial really feels like a god, and this build is the ultimate warrior. The mods we will be using include the alternate start mod, which allows us to roleplay his arrival in Skyrim, as no Imperial chains would be able to hold such a powerful being. The Imperious Races of Skyrim mod gives us some unique benefits to our racial choice, and the Andromeda Standing Stone of Skyrim mod gives some fresh new effects to the standing stones across the land. The Oblivion Artifact Pack mod is needed for his aesthetic and his weaponry, and finally the Ordinator perk overhaul gives us some all new perk opportunities to explore. Now before we get into the build, don't forget that all the links to these mods as well as timestamps for video navigation can be found in the description just below. The Celestial can actually be any of the human races, but we personally choose to be a Nord as they are good warriors and also the tallest humans, a good fit for the Celestial's divine godly style. With this in mind, you'll start the game with 110 base health, 85 magicka, 105 stamina, 0.75% health regen per second, 2.875% when it comes to magicka, and 5.25% when it comes to stamina regen, and you'll also get 325 carry weight. You'll also have these abilities: Avatar, which can be unlocked after clearing 8 dungeons, and this grants fast magicka and stamina regen for a short time. Son of Skyrim grants a resistance to frost while Avatar is active. The Purge gives you the ability to choose 3 races, 1 at each level, 10, 20, and 30. From then on, you'll deal bonus damage to that race, and then Warrior's Heart allows you to deal more damage as your health decreases in combat. The Celestial will of course be using the Warrior Stone, which grants him these powers. Fierce Spirit increases power attack damage by 15%. Warrior's Path allows you to learn 2 warrior skills of your choice 20% faster. Sleeping allows you to change these. Now as for the stat spread, the Celestial will have 60% health for protection in battle alongside his armor, and then 40% into stamina for plenty of power attacks and higher power attack damage. Importantly, stamina will also help us sprint after and chop down all the foes who will be fleeing from our super potent fear enchantment. The Celestial's story does not start as you'd expect, where most children have sporadic blurred memories of youth, nursing with their mothers or being held cradled in their father's arms. The Celestial had something else entirely. The Celestial's birth was sudden, a being created by an idea. The Celestial wasn't exactly sapient in the unknown time he spent gazing down upon Tamriel from the sky. He was much alive, much in the way every seed is alive before it sprouts. His metaphysical self was composed of pure potential, and then one moment, not unlike any other, the great green and brown mass of land he watched over suddenly bore down upon him, chasing him like a predatorial beast. During the commotion, the Celestial realized it was he who was moving. He was falling, and as he fell, he felt a tide of emotion wash over him. Centuries of blissful nothingness transformed into an overwhelming weight of conscious experience. The seemingly small continent grew in size rapidly until the vibrant color engulfed the darkness he'd known, and then when he was close enough to see the immense detail present in the landscape, he crashed. The needs of Craglorn sheltered their eyes against the radiant blaze that tore through the sky. When the Celestial hit the earth, the force of it sent them to their knees. The needs, the human predecessors to the Imperials we know today, checked the health of their loved ones and then whispered prayers to their gods. The chief of the tribe looked on in astonishment at the scene. The Nedict of Skyreach had created a great laboratory to study the constellations. Everyone had heard stories of the celestial beings they had called down from the heavens, but it was astonishing to see with their own eyes. The chief halted his people at the edge of the crater, warning them not to stare at the gleaming sphere of fire at its heart. He called over his astrologers and asked for their counsel. They told him it was the 15th day of the last seed, the month of the warrior. Carefully, he scaled the descending shelves of freshly disturbed soil, shielding his eyes as he approached. The Celestial felt his shape change, his amorphous form tightened, the licking flames at the edge of the sphere became subdued, and he had the immediate urge to stand, an instinct he wouldn't have understood moments earlier. From the cosmic fire emerged a man, similar in appearance to the Nedic people, only larger and covered in muscle. A small mortal approached him and knelt before him. He looked up to the rim of the crater, and more mortals came into view. Each of them knelt before the hollow in the earth, and together they all muttered prayers and thrust their hands towards the sky. The Celestial soon understood the mortals who had taken him in. They treated him like a god, and in their sermons and ceremonies he learned of the constellations, and that he was born from the image of the warrior. Without so much as a day of training, the Celestial had bested the mightiest of the Nedic fighters in combat. The Celestial felt a divine urge to protect these people. He scaled the surrounding Dragontail Mountains to provide food for the tribe. He protected their crops from pests and invaders, and he taught the men to fight. It was an innate ability that he had. He stayed with the tribe for multiple generations, allowing them to live lives free from fear. But one day, Western invaders, known as the Ukudans, landed on the shores of Hammerfell, and when they finally reached the region of Craglorn, their numbers were too many even for a god. They were ferocious fighters, and while they could not slay the Celestial warrior, they proved to be efficient in picking off men from their dwindling numbers. The Celestial's paternal instinct to protect the tribe forced him to act. He called the people to his temple and proclaimed that they must flee. He led them deep into the Dragontail Mountains, out of the reach of the Ukudan conquerors, and within a deep cave. The Needs made a temporary home. The cave was not luxurious, but it kept them protected, at least for a few weeks, until one fateful day. A group of Ukudans found them and blocked the Needs from the only exit. The Celestial stepped forward with his battle axe drawn, and single-handedly he crushed them one by one. He caved in the skull of the first, he decapitated a handful of others. His temper flared and he uttered a vicious battle cry. The final Ukudan fought valiantly, but he was no match, and the Celestial slammed the Dark Warrior's body against the wall of the cave with divine power. The invader died instantly, hundreds of bones shattering from the force of it, and a great shockwave vibrated throughout the walls of the cave. The force of the impact summoned a landslide, and boulders slid down the side of the Dragontail Mountains. Before anyone could react, a wave of rocks and boulders fell before the cave mouth, plunging the Needs and the Celestial within into darkness. They were trapped. The wall of the boulders would not budge, and the Celestial was forced to watch his people slowly starve to death one by one. Entire eras came and went. New races sprung into being, and new factions gained control over the lands the Celestial once knew. It was 2 centuries into the 4th era when a series of sharp sporadic noises wrenched the Celestial from his slumber. A beam of light broke through the tunnel, casting a spotlight upon his face. When the Redguard miners found him, they each made a prayer to their foreign gods. The Celestial emerged from the heights of the Dragontail Mountains. He felt that same long-forgotten profound feeling of confusion he had the day he fell from the sky. He wandered east in search of a new purpose, scaling the Druidak Mountains and entering the province of Skyrim. When we join the Celestial, he will be keeping his cards close to his chest. These modern mortals do not have the same reverence for the constellations that his former tribe had, and there is no saying whether the presence of a divine being would inspire worship or revolt, especially during these times of political disarray. So the Celestial sits quietly in the Dead Man's Drink, Falkreath's tavern, not far from the foothills of the same Druidak Mountains he crossed not long before. The Celestial has an air of superiority about him, not in that he is arrogant or condescending, but he harnesses immense power that he can use as he likes. In terms of roleplaying, this means your actions will have significant consequences. Whoever you decide to align with, you will undoubtedly secure victory for that faction. The Celestial is forged in the form of the archetypical warrior. This means he has the potential for great acts of benevolence, but also great anger. It is said that those born under the sign of the warrior are skilled with weapons of all kinds, but prone to short tempers. So it falls upon you, the player, to decide who deserves the Celestial's charity and who deserves his wrath. It is also said that the warrior is the first guardian constellation, and he protects his charges during their seasons. The warrior's own season is last seed, when his strength is needed for the harvest. His charges are the lady, the steed, and the lord. Therefore, the Celestial will often act as a protector, and while it refers to the other birth signs, you can take this quite literally and make it your primary goal to protect the lady, the steed, and the lord. So if you see a woman in need, you will assist her. You will treat your servants and your steeds with the utmost respect, and while you are far more powerful than any Jarl, you can keep the peace by assisting the lords and carrying out their wills. But considering the fact that the Celestial is so alien to the culture and politics of Skyrim, you can really go wherever you want with this. The key thing to remember is that he represents the embodiment of the warrior. As for factions, you can assume from the role-playing section that pretty much anything is an option so long as you don't become completely evil. Any quests that make you feel like a powerful god are 100% worth taking. The main storyline and the Dragonborn DLC can definitely be done, as this celestial being is going to chase his prophetic Dragonborn powers. The Dawnguard DLC, siding with the Vampire Hunters, is also a great and noble way to utilize your power. The Celestial can certainly join the Companions, although you will want to rid yourself of the werewolf form. And finally, the College of Winterhold is an option purely for the adventure and all the godly moments you can experience. Even though you don't use conventional magic, you can still be there purely due to being a Dragonborn and looking for opportunities for mastering and researching your newfound dragon shouts. Also, make sure to get the Black Star by betraying Azura in her quest. But with the Celestial's backstory, roleplaying, and factions sorted out, let's take a look at his skills, shouts, perks, and playstyle. The main skills for this build will be two-handed, light armor, heavy armor, smithing, and speech. Even though we won't be using any spells, before we talk essential perks, let's just go over the shouts you'll need for this build. Dragon aspect will be your go-to shout, adding to the godlike aesthetics and buffs. Become ethereal will make you invulnerable for a short time and fits the celestial theme very well. Fire breath, frost breath, and cyclone are great offensive options. Ice form can stop your foes in their tracks too, and storm call will show the mortals who attack you just how powerful this demigod really is. These offensive shouts showcase different elements and show off the power of the celestial. But with that said, here are the celestial's important perks from each skill tree. If you find yourself before the warrior stone in Skyrim, you'll see a legendary hero wielding a mighty axe. The celestial fights with equal vigor, choosing a giant two-handed axe over a lightweight weapon. From the two-handed skill tree, take two-handed mastery 2 out of 2, trained fighter, death or glory, bleed like a dog 3 out of 3, rive 2 out of 2, execute, decimate, bisect, ram's head, slayer of 1,000 suns, ferocious strength, ramming speed, bare hide, massacre, enter the arena, and voice of rage and ruin. With death or glory, the celestial will thrive when he feels pain. Mortal wounds don't scare him, they only reinforce his fury. With this perk, your power attack damage will deal up to 100% more when you're below half health. The bonus increases as your health decreases. The branch beginning with bleed like a dog will add huge buffs to your battle axe blows. With Slayer of 1,000 Suns, you'll deal 5% more damage for each humanoid or animal you slew in the previous battle, maxing out at 40%. Massacre will give you a 10% chance to increase your attack speed by 175% for 3 seconds after you swing. Enter the arena guarantees a successful massacre effect with your first swing in combat. And a Voice of Rage and Ruin gives you a 4% chance to activate your currently equipped power free of charge when swinging your axe. Being a higher power is often less about your actions and more about the common person's perception of you. When you think of a god, you think of a seraphic light and a choir of angels heralding your arrival. Well, the Celestial understands the importance of having an inspiring aesthetic while simultaneously keeping himself protected on the battlefield. He achieves this with a mixture of light and heavy armor. So from these trees, take both ranks of light and heavy armor mastery. What good is being godly in combat when you're wielding subpar equipment? A Celestial's power requires a Celestial's hand at the forge. For that reason, he improves his arms and armor, making sure the final quality of his gear wasn't left in the hands of flawed mortals. From the smithing skill tree, go for smithing mastery 2 out of 2, merrick smithing 1 out of 2 picking dwarven, expert smithing 1 out of 2 picking orcish, exotic smithing 1 out of 2 picking ebony, arcane blacksmith, advanced workshop, smithing specialization picking two-handed, iron law, recycle materials, sandstone sheath, fuel the inferno, and heart of creation. Finally, we have the speech skill, and the Celestial is a natural at inspiring reverence in those around him. Maybe it's his intimidating presence, or maybe it's his angelic tones. Either way, mortals are prone to complying with the demands of this unique being. But most importantly, the Celestial's vocal cords are used for dragon shouts. From the skill tree, take speech mastery 2 out of 2, and the universe listens, windborn, hurricane force, Force Redoubled 2 out of 2, Thulma of War, Merciless Storm, and Dova Zulan. And the Universe Listens allows shouts to restore health, magicka, and stamina equal to your shout cooldown in seconds. It also allows you to gain speech experience from shouting, which is extremely useful. Windborne means shouting will temporarily boost your attack damage by 30% and your movement speed by 15% for 15 seconds, stacking. Thulma of War will stagger nearby enemies when you shout, as well as reducing their armor rating by 300 points for 10 seconds. With Merciless Storm, you have the power to cancel one shout cooldown per day, and with Dova Zulan, your next shout after activating Merciless Storm will also carry the previous shout with it. With all of these skills, shouts, and perks in mind, here's how the Celestial will play in combat. You'll be trying to hit as many enemies as physically possible with your axe, as you'll want to have them all running in fear. Our special modded axe has this fear-based enchantment. If hordes attack, this is especially useful. Hit each target once to make them all run, and then chase them down and kill them. However, you don't need to take this extremely literally. Do not just run across the battlefield hitting each enemy just once. If you can simply kill some enemies that are close up to you first, then just do that. Don't overthink it. Make sure you're utilizing all your shouts and powers at the same time, having Dragon Aspect activated often, and burning and freezing with your breath-based shouts. Become Ethereal is also perfect for any tight situations, or looking like a god as you jump off a huge cliff and take no damage. The Celestial will be combining fast and heavy two-handed strikes with shouts to deal damage at close and long range, while also preventing enemies from escaping. You can't run from a demigod. As for gear, we will be getting a lot from the Oblivion Artifact Pack mod. In terms of armor, you'll want Volsong, the Dragon Priest mask, which allows you to breathe underwater, as well as gives you 20 more pounds of carry weight and 20% better prices. He'll wear Imperial Light boots, which may seem a little random, but the reddish hue fits the aesthetic very nicely. Then get Dondaran's Juggernaut. This heavy armor grants a 10% boost to two-handed damage and even one-handed damage, and grants 10 extra points of carry weight. This piece can be found in the ruins of Raudbathar in the main room where the bandit boss is found. Then get Rashida's Special. These gauntlets can be found in the Riften Blacksmith's house on the mantelpiece. They offer a 5% boost to two-handed, again to one-handed, and 5% boost to smithing. Finally, you'll need an Amulet of Talos to help with shout cooldowns, an enchanted ring of your choice, perhaps one that increases your two-handed damage, and then the Black Star for recharging your axe. Obviously, you'll want to carry some kind of soul trap weapon to use in conjunction with it. Speaking of your axe, the weapon we use for this build is called the Battle Axe of Hatred, and can be found in Embashard Mine on a table. This axe has lower damage as it is based off an iron battle axe, but we can boost it up significantly with smithing and our perk choices. Don't forget to smith up all of your armor too. The axe is extremely good though. Besides looking cool, it has the ability to make creatures and people up to level 100 flee, while also sending Daedra back to Oblivion. This really suits the Celestial's divine presence. And there you have it, guys. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to get more Skyrim builds just like this. Don't forget the timestamps and the mod list can be found in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. My name's Michael, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.